as our Rotarian of the Day.
Thanks, sir. That's hard to follow. Those were hard. I'm glad I wasn't tested on those. Well, some of you may know our guest today, and some may not, but it's Heather Houle. Heather is the executive director of the Saville Center, which helps many agencies, works with many agencies in our community, dealing with children, child abuse, interviews, many, many things that our community desperately needs. They're always looking for volunteers, board members, funding, grants. So if any of you know of any avenues after she talks that could help their agency, I'm sure she would love to hear from you. They have information after the program if anybody would like their pamphlet and more information. But I'm going to let Heather tell you about their agency, their mission, and what they do to help our community and those kids in our community that need their help.
All right, you take this. Go for it. I know. This is Heidi Warren. She's my program director, and we're going to talk a little bit more about her in a minute, too. But I just wanted to say thanks for having us, and Glenna, thanks for thinking of us for today. We've had a pretty crazy few years post-pandemic, so we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I'm going to show you some slides today to, it really is just to help my brain remember what I wanted to share with you guys today. So as a child who's been through adverse childhood experiences myself, parental incarceration, addiction, and rape, it is very prevalent and important for me to be here to share stories about Saville with you guys today. Without community members like you guys and mentors, I wouldn't be standing up here, and I know that. And so I'm proud to be here. I wish that my mom would have known about a Child Advocacy Center when I was going through hard parts of my life. But she leaned into community members that listened and community members that helped, that did their civic duties and went out there and advocated for organizations like the Saville Center. And thankfully, because of that and because of mentors and community members like you guys, I wasn't a statistic. I graduated high school, college, and became the director of the Saville Center. So I'm proud to be here to share a little bit from a child's heart today about our agency. So we are the Saville Center. I don't know how I'm going to switch to this next slide. Yeah, let's go back one. Different direction. There we go. Okay, so Heidi, why don't you get us started with some history? Heidi's been with us for 10 beautiful years. She just celebrated her anniversary last year, so if you'll give her a round of applause. And for anybody in nonprofit, 10 years in nonprofit years is how many, Rachel, Elizabeth? It is a lot. It is a lot. So I will let Heidi share some history, and then we'll move on to meeting our team.
Okay, so I guess I'll just talk a little bit about, as far as history, why we exist. So before there were child advocacy centers, when a child would make an outcry about or disclosure about abuse, or if abuse was suspected, children would often be interviewed by multiple people across the course of weeks probably. They would, and sometimes within the same day, they would have to perhaps talk to their teacher, and then the counselor would ask them questions, and then maybe the principal would ask them what happened, and then they would start making phone calls, and then a DHS worker would ask them questions, all the same questions over again, sometimes new questions. Then maybe they would have to go to a police station, which, as you could imagine, is very frightening. So then they would be basically interviewed again. So what they came down to in their reasoning for a Child Advocacy Center was, hey, let's stop asking kids the very same questions, 13, 14, 15 times. It's just re-traumatizing them, and it's not helping anyone. It certainly isn't helping the child. So with a Child Advocacy Center, that whole process is stopped and brought to the Advocacy Center so that everybody comes to the kiddo. So when there is an outcry or a disclosure or some kind of allegation, law enforcement and DHS are the first ones that are notified, and there is basically what a teacher is going to do now is going to say, thank you so much for telling me what happened. This is just an example if they make an outcry to whoever, but the teacher or whoever that person is going to say, thank you so much for telling me. I hear you. I'm going to talk to somebody and we're going to help you with this. And so no promises are made, but they simply aren't going to ask any more questions. And then the report is going to be made once DHS and law enforcement are brought into the loop on it. Then the appointment is made at the Child Advocacy Center. So now the child comes there and the investigators come there and the work is done in a safe and home-like environment. So that's sort of the history of why we exist.
All cases
about that?
cases come to us through either a DHS or law enforcement referral. So that means no walk-ins. And as the director and program director, for us, that's accountability. That's when somebody shows up at our door, we make sure that a referral is made first. And we'll talk a little bit about our team and our multidisciplinary team and why that's important. But I'm sure some of you guys have been on community pages and had run-ins with law enforcement, DHS, and everybody has certain feelings about all of those things. But we have amazing partners here in Payne County, and we'll talk a little bit about them as well. But for me, that means accountability. That means that no child slips through the cracks, that all cases get talked about at the Saville Center. So, yeah, it's
an investigation is handled properly from the very beginning, and we just really want to make sure that kids aren't re-traumatized. So if everything is handled correctly from the very beginning, that's the best case scenario for the kiddo.
And we see all allegations of abuse. So I often tell people, when you're watching the news and there's something disheartening that comes on the news and you turn it off, they're walking into our building. So unfortunately, there's no bias of who that might look like. We've seen cases that dealt with professors and doctors and community members. It's not just like most people think, poverty or different things like that. We see severe neglect, drug endangerment, human trafficking, sexual abuse, physical abuse, witness to homicide, witness to domestic violence, and all of those cases come through the Saville Center or another advocacy center across Oklahoma. So we are accredited. We're accredited in our state and nationally, which means that we have protocols that we have to follow. So just like at everybody's job, when you have something that you're up against and somebody else has to take that over, we're the start of an investigation. We're that hub. And then somebody takes that over beyond us, one of our community partners. Okay, this is my favorite part. I get to talk about everybody that I'm blessed to work with. So you'll see me over there in the corner hanging out at the coffee shop. And I've been the executive director for 2.5 years there. I have an extensive background in nonprofit and healthcare and mental health. And so it was really a God wink when this position came available to be able to come to a facility that had a mental health cottage, a medical cottage, and child advocacy, because that was my full background. So that is exciting. Right below me is Brandy Watts. If you guys don't know Brandy, she is our nurse practitioner, a phenomenal lady. In our community, she's just the smile that you want to see. She's somebody that's highly knowledgeable about her position. So she does sexual assault and child abuse exams. Beyond that, she educates kids where they're at. There's nothing that a child can't talk about with Brandy. So it might not be that they talk about their injuries or something that may have happened. They might want to talk to her about hygiene. They might want to talk to her about sex. They might want to talk to her about grandpa that just got his gallbladder out. And she meets them where they're at and talks about all of those things. What I love about Brandy is she never lets a child leave feeling damaged or broken. And so she gets to show them their injuries, and she gets to explain to them their healing process, and that if they don't want to share their story, that they are going to heal, and that nobody will know something happened to them unless they want to share that in the future. So she's a beautiful human. She works in our medical cottage. We have 3 clinic rooms over there, and we're going to talk about opening up some tours and stuff. And there's Heidi. So Heidi's our program director. I'll brag on her because she's here. She's my right-hand everything. She could run this agency way better than I could. I always tell her you should have taken the job first. But we really do everything from community awareness to grant writing. We're the directors of the direct services. We gosh, I don't know, clean toilets and anything that a nonprofit needs, we switch hats about 20 times a day. So financials and grant reporting and all the fun things we get to do. You want to talk about maybe your favorite part of your position?
Oh my gosh, my favorite part is just working with everybody on the staff. Everybody's got a heart for what they do, and that is important. And a big thing that Heather didn't mention is we actually back up the advocate, which is really, I know that's where Heather's heart always is. I mean, mine too, but Heather's like, she's a pro at it. So.
Thank you. And then some of you guys might notice Shannon Heiner. Her family has been around Stillwater for a very long time. Beautiful smile right there in the middle. She is our Director of Victim Services. So Shannon meets with a non-offending caregiver while a child is on site. So what that means for me is that, again, another family member just gets that special touch from one of our staff members, and she could resource them with anything that they might need. If they've been displaced and they need a mattress, if they need a hotel room for the night, if we need to call Lions Meadows of Hope, or if we need to go to the food pantry, if we need to reach out to Wings of Hope for a protective order, she's doing all of those things. And then she gets to follow the family through the trajectory of the case. So she is almost the only one that continues to follow up after, because she does court school with kids, makes them feel confident about their job in court, and she continues to follow up with families about mental health treatment as well. Below her is Hayden. Hayden Reed is our newest forensic interviewer. She's been with us since the spring, an OSU graduate and proud. And she's beautiful, calm. She has those one-on-one conversations with children. So if you've ever watched Law and Order and you see like interrogations with perpetrators and different things, it's nothing like that at the Saville Center. I like to debunk that because it's one of those moments where they build rapport, they find out about a child's family, they find out about their pets, their hobbies, those kind of things. And a child is never forced to talk at Saville Center, whether it be a medical exam or a forensic interview. They go there, they don't want to talk, they need therapy for a little while, want to come back and disclose. That's what we want them to do. We will always do what's in the best interest of the child, even if that means that the investigation has to stop and then we go back to it. So that's always very important for me to get across to the community. Donna is right next to the dog, and she has been a forensic interviewer of ours for a little over a year. Again, her and Hayden share that same position, and then everybody does dual roles at Saville Center, so they help with prevention and organization and different things as well. Below her, I love to share about Miss Haley. We've been looking for a mental health therapist for 2.5 years. So if anybody is in therapy themselves or knows the mental health world, there's been a mental health crisis for years in Oklahoma. And so we wanted the right person to be able to visit with our children about trauma-based therapy, and she was the absolute perfect fit. So we're happy to have her. And then Maria is our facility dog, and Maria has been with us for 6 years. She's 8 years old now, and she's awesome. She could sit with kids during forensic interviews, their medical exams, and go to court with them. So she's an absolute asset to our team. Everybody loves Maria when they come around. How about you talk about our multidisciplinary team?
All right. So to do what we do, basically we exist for our multidisciplinary team. And so we work with local law enforcement, also our DHS office. We work with the medical professionals and mental health professionals in town, and then the district attorney's office. And in the workings of an investigation, it always starts out with law enforcement and DHS. Those are our primary contacts at the beginning. But then we all meet on Fridays, every Friday at noon, with the whole multidisciplinary team so that we can review those cases of the most serious neglect and abuse that are happening in our community.
We work with Stillwater Medical, the Juvenile Affairs, the tribes.
OJA.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have a good connection with the tribes. We're always trying to keep them in the loop. They're in our world as well. I was gonna say, who we also use. We have Haley on staff for our mental health, but we also are always resourcing out to our other mental health professionals that are in the community as well,
Yeah.
because it's hard to get services for everybody. And we also want to make sure that kids don't have to travel real far. So kiddos who maybe live in Cushing, we'll refer them to counselors who are in Cushing or in Guthrie, et cetera.
So we do serve Payne, Logan, and we're starting to serve Pawnee County. And so we go by jurisdiction, which is Payne and Logan County for our district attorney's office for prosecution. And then we've been asked by Pawnee to provide those services as well because they don't have a child advocacy center there. And so we really just, our day-to-day looks like that we've already had something scheduled. Like today we showed up, 2 children were being interviewed. Our team gets together and they pre-staff a case that's coming in to prepare everybody's hearts and heads for the child that's coming in. We prepare our home. If you haven't been on a tour of the Saville Center, it does look like a house. We're directly across from Tiger Drug and the white buildings with the red doors. And it's a comfortable space. Kids don't want to leave there, and we're proud of that, and it's a precious thing to have here in Stillwater where it's not them just going into a business. We invited some of our commissioners to come out recently and their thoughts before they walked in on what type of business we had, and when they left was changing, you know, and that's beautiful because we were able to be awarded ARPA funding and different things like that. So if you haven't, we're going to have 3 open houses every Thursday in September, and I'm going to go ahead and post those on our Facebook as well. And so you guys are welcome to just come out. It's called a Slice of Knowledge. So a lot of things that you're hearing today, you'll get to see put in action and walk through those buildings and get some pie or pizza while you're there. Yeah, there it is. Everybody come out. This is one of my new and favorite things to talk about, and Heidi can probably share some real neat aspects of that. Shannon Heiner, our Director of Victim Services, she had a dream for the Saville Center to have a junior board. And this would be children against abuse, children talking in the community. And it's been my most proud thing to watch at Saville other than my own staff. And so we have about 11 kiddos that range from 6 to 17, and they advocate in the community and at the Capitol alongside Trish, we've seen, in just talking about child abuse laws, in talking about how to support Saville, in being that advocate within their schools, and raising funds for our staff and our center. And it's really neat. So you'll see them in some of these pictures. They're at some awareness events. What's really cool about these kiddos is it's building a mini resume for them. We said from the get-go that they would be the ones that would go to community members, their principals and businesses. They would be the ones that would ask for a donation or an opportunity to speak or sit in on a community awareness event. How can you turn down a face like that? So some of the things they've done, they put the pinwheels out in the courthouse lawn along some of our other organizations. You'll see 2 gals in the middle with cane mock. They held a hat day. One of them's Heidi's lovely daughter. And so they went to their principal and asked to do a hat day. There's one where they're all doing a ribbon cutting because they opened a little resource library, and it's white with a red door right outside of our building, and it has toiletries, some food, and books. And then you've got some of the girls at the Kaleidoscope Festival, which is something we're very proud of, alongside some of our organizations that happens downtown in April. And then there's a good group picture of some of the girls that started the junior board and their advocacy. And then you'll see my little gal, Kansas. She was at the Capitol talking about child abuse awareness to grown adults. And it was fun to watch her talk about different laws and advocacy for them. So we're super proud of that. If you ever see them or get the opportunity to support them, let them talk to you, let them share their hearts with you. We did a 25th anniversary last year, and they asked 25 people for $25. And so they've got some cool little business ideas that they're, popping up in the community and doing. So they're about to start meeting again. We took a good summer break, and you'll see them out and about. Do you want to say anything about our junior board?
Yeah, I do. So, there's so many levels of good from this board beyond everything that even Heather's talking about. these kids they're inspiring. They're inspiring other people. They're saying, oh, wow, look what these kids are doing. They're empowering. They're giving kids a voice. They're also taking away the taboo of child abuse. They're, the more we talk about it, the more we spread awareness, the less power that the offenders and the perpetrators have. We got to keep talking about it, and we need to let kids know that it's okay to talk about hard things. It's okay to talk about things that make other people uncomfortable. So I'm super proud of this group of kids. Really proud.
And I love what you said about taking away the taboo. When I came to this position, I've worked with CASA and different Big Brothers Big Sisters, different organizations that walk the path with children. And Saville, it's been the hardest because nobody in this room wants to say 415 kids are being abused in our community, and nobody wants to recognize that our Mayberry is not so Mayberry sometimes, right? And the good thing about that, and Glenna and I have talked a lot about that, is to know that when you lay your head down at night, that there's 7 beautiful people, plus our board members, junior board, that are there to ensure that something is happening when that abuse happens. We work with several organizations that do the same thing in making sure that those children are safe in our community. So it's hard to talk about, but like Heidi said, if we don't talk about it, people don't know where their heart bleeds for that and how they can help with that. And so we advocate and we want to be loud about it now. It's not always been that way. Like, every single one of us could probably say that in our families, we didn't really talk about those kind of things. And I was one of them. And so the more we talk about it, the more kids feel comfortable talking about it. And the more, reporting will happen and different things like that. Which brings me right into the segue of reporting and roar prevention. So we were fortunate enough to be approached by Stillwater Public Schools at the end of last year, at the end of our budget, and say, hey, we were hoping that you guys could purchase this licensure for a new prevention. This prevention program was actually established by another child advocacy director out of Oklahoma City. And fortunately, somebody walked in with the exact check amount for us to purchase the license. And so just from December to February, we were able to get trained in it, Heidi and I, and we presented it to all of our Stillwater Public Schools counselors and trained them. We trained Lions Meadows of Hope as well. And several people now can present this training to the elementary schools. We are going to go into Cushing, Guthrie, Perkins, Coyle, Ripley, all the schools surrounding us, Pawnee areas. But this is new. And so what we love to talk about ROAR, and again, it's that stigma that we're breaking down that we have to talk about body parts so kids don't keep secrets. So ROAR stands for remembering that privates are private, that it's okay to say no, that we always talk about secrets, and that we raise our voice and tell someone. It's important. It's important that kids know this. It's important that kids know about their body parts. I know as a mom, it's uncomfortable for my child to call their body parts by their proper names. It's weird to hear your child say that for the first time. But it is a statistic that the more children know what their body parts are called and get prevention training, the more likely they are to talk about their perpetrators and the secrets that they're supposed to be keeping. So the statistic is that 96% of children know their perpetrator. And the statistic at Saville Center is 99% knew their perpetrator. So this was a coach, and this was an uncle.
99.9.
Well, I'm with Heidi on that one. It's a rare occasion that it was a stranger. So stranger danger, well, it works in some areas. It's not when it comes to this. And so very important to talk to our children, our grandchildren, friends and family about this, and to know that we're respecting boundaries different ourselves. I don't tell my child to give grandma a hug anymore. I give them options about their body now. Do you want to give grandma a hug? Do you want to give her a fist bump? Do you want to give her the fingers? Not that finger. Sorry. You always slip up and say something. We like grandma. No. So it's important to also start readjusting our mindset, right? Because we always want to say, no, come give me a hug. And so to remember that we're changing what those boundaries look like, and that your kids are learning those new boundaries, and your grandkids and nieces and nephews, so we adapt with them, and that's something very important. Another aspect is reporting. So I don't know if you guys know it, but in the state of Oklahoma, everybody in this room is a mandated reporter. So we always say, and our junior board teaches it best, if you see something, say something. For me, that goes for everything. Let somebody else deal with the investigation. You don't have to. If you're in Walmart, and by all means, I've got some chaotic kids too sometimes, and I've had some rough days. But if you're somewhere and you see something a little aggressive happening, or you hear something at work that somebody's doing, you can report that. If something feels uncomfortable, report it to the DHS hotline or to law enforcement. Call Saville Center if you don't know how, and we're happy to help you report it. Because we don't know what's going on behind closed doors, and it is your neighbor, and it is your friend up the street, and it is somebody in your family, unfortunately. And so just saying something and letting somebody else deal with that investigation is so, so important. How to support Saville. Join the board. This is one of the easiest ways, so we're always looking for a diverse group of board members. If you don't have the time to sit on a board of directors, we have several committees. I always say, if you have a heart to help, I have a place for you. So maybe you love planting flowers or taking the dust bunnies off of our cottages. All of those things are very important. Then we have Support United Way. So we're actually in the middle of our United Way campaign. Several of you, I'm sure, have heard from Ruth herself. And this is something, we do get some amazing funding from United Way, and we're appreciative of their support. In-kind donations. So we use a lot of Play-Doh and markers, a lot of paper, a lot of those kind of things, so kids could show us, keep their mind busy and show us maybe what's been done to them or what they've observed. And so we utilize those. Food, toiletries, all those types of things. Monthly donors. I'm not going to talk a lot about funding today because we are in United Way campaign, and I want to be respectful of that. But we have those options to be a monthly donor. You guys have already started. You've invited us to speak today, so thank you to all of you. If you have groups that you'd like us to talk to, church groups, talk about the roar prevention. If you just want me to talk to your big family of 30 about boundaries, like, I'm happy to come do that. And I will. Invite me to Thanksgiving. Support our staff. If you have a good Thanksgiving. Supporting our staff, this is one that's so important to me. When I came 2.5 years ago, one thing that I realized post-pandemic and in a world where our staff is hearing firsthand trauma daily, trauma, over and over, and these cases are so complex. You might have heard a witness to domestic violence for years in a lot of those cases, and now unfortunately we're hearing strangulation and kids getting whipped on the back and the front. And it's important that we talk about those things and get invited to speak about those things, but supporting our staff and their mental health and well-being has been something that I've advocated for since the minute I walked through the door. Do we have safety precautions? So we got cameras for the first time 2.5 years ago. Mental health, we have a therapist that comes in every Friday and talks to our staff. We've partnered with a yoga studio. They can go out and do yoga. We debrief with each other. That's what we do. We understand that not a lot of people go through what we go through every day. What's some of the, we have progressive PTO now. So when my staff wants to take off, they take off. It's kind of new and different. My staff always wants to be there, so I have to push them out the door. But we have all these different options to care for their mental health and well-being, and to make sure that at the end of the day, they're caring for themselves so they can care for the community. Attending an event or open house. So we have Mardi Gras Ball or Mardi Gras Gala. It's been the Derby in the past, and that's always in the spring. Dancing with the Stars, so if anybody wants to get crazy and dance for us one day, I know some of you guys have been asked, but we have some celebrity dancers that have been celebrity dancers for Dancing with the Stars, and it's fun. So that's in December. Trish. What kind of dance did you do, Trish? You can't say it. Well, a little nervous there.
It's from the movie Dirty Dancing.
Oh, okay. Well, I love that. They rookied me into it my first year, and I got to learn how to do the jive. So, and I had Will Townsend as my partner, and we had a good time dancing at that. It was a real fun event. That's December 7th, so as long as we're not in the football, era still, which we hope, right? We'll have that event too. And then attending an open house, coming and really getting rooted in Saville. It's a lot to listen to the hard things, but to see it with your eyes and get to talk to our staff board or junior board, which are phenomenal. We have amazing board members as well. I didn't get to talk about them, but the work that they do is so important to advocate, raise funds, and to be my bosses. So it's always a good time. And then advocate and be curious. This is something that I always say, like, be curious. Ask me all the questions. Like, nothing is too big or too small. If it's uncomfortable for you to ask today, you're always welcome. I put our email at the end, and you guys can call. We're open 24/7, 365. Somebody's going to answer at all times. You might drive by and there's no cars, and it's because it's been a hard day. We're done with our cases, and I send my staff home at 1 o'clock. And then there's other times we'll be there for 8 hours on a Saturday. And so we're always there. We're always willing to serve. We're first responders ourselves. And we're proud to do it. We've all been doing it for years, and we'll continue to do it as long as God will allow us to. But advocate, talk about what you learned today. Be curious, come by for an open house. And then, what kind of questions do we have? Yes, sir.
Can you give us your annual budget? And number two, how many cases a year do you have?
Yes. He asked about our annual budget and how many cases we serve a year. You want to come around here?
No,
You coming to hang out?
Yep.
He's going to answer the questions for me. So we have over a $600,000 budget this year, and we serve over 415 children and provide over 875 free services. So everything is free of cost. I was actually just sharing with Glenna that post-pandemic, there were some things that changed in our federal funding and state funding. So we actually just took a $90,000 hit that will go into effect in October. And so there's a huge need for new grants and donors and monthly donors and different things like that, and supporting the agency, from the ground up in every little thing that we do. And it takes a lot to have 7 employees that are in direct services doing what they do every day with the materials that we need to do it well, and to keep those 3 buildings open. So that's a beautiful question. And
Just want to underscore also that all of our services are free. Every service is free. And that includes medical services and the counseling, the mental health therapy that is afterwards. So all free.
yeah. Other questions?
I actually had one question for you. So how many new cases or new referrals do you get in a week or a month? What's your typical number?
That's a good question. So we were seeing about 4 to 8 cases a week, and usually that used to slow during the summer, and that would look like slowing down because we didn't have our teachers, counselors, and different people that were after-school organizations reporting. That has not slowed down in 2 years. We've not had a normal summer or break or slow time. So where we were having 4 to 8 cases a week, 6 to 8 cases a week, 2 weeks ago we just had 21 cases in a week. This week we're about at 6. Next week we don't know yet. And those cases come to us, all different aspects. It could be an emergency case that we find out this afternoon that we're all going in for, or we could know what we're looking at the next week. That week that we had 21 recently was eye-opening for me, especially after I think I found out the $90,000 cut and got 21 cases in a week and thought, what are we up against? What are we facing, in the next year? So I always say confidently we're okay for 2025. I don't know what 2026 looks like. So we want to make sure we've been here 26 years, and we want to make sure there's 26 more years coming ahead. Thank you.
All right. So first of all, let's give a nice round of applause. Thank you. This is such an important